for coming on today with Conversations with Robin. We have Amanda here and Mimi, who we've had on before. Mimi, welcome back.
Oh, I love being back. It feels so good.
I'm happy and excited to have both of you ladies on. Amanda, tell me about yourself. Like, I know that you're a yoga instructor, like we talked about. Go ahead, sorry.
No, I was about to say, where to start? Um, so born and raised right outside of Boston, Massachusetts, in Salem. My girls love to claim that they're half witch by birth, and I definitely encourage that.
That's awesome.
It's really fun until like teachers start contacting me. But anyways, I handle that as well as I can. But no, so I moved to the South when I was going into junior high, raised in Georgia, essentially, went to Auburn for undergrad. And then right when I graduated, I was like, well, time to get a job. And so I moved to Atlanta because it was the most affordable and exciting place close to where I was graduating from. Did I ever think I would be a yoga teacher? No.
It doesn't end up like that.
No, just totally not even on my radar. And it's so funny because I even remember the first time I ever took a yoga class.
Mm-hmm.
I was so turned off. I was in my early 20s. I thought to myself, why are these yogis so serious? This sucks. We're moving so slow. But then I stepped away from it, went on with life, carried on in my 20s. And then now I have two little girls who are my world, and my husband is my best friend, and I live in the burbs. And I was a stay-at-home mom for a while. And then I just decided one day, well, not just decided one day, but I had that light bulb moment that a lot of us have when you're in the middle of a flow and, it hits you somewhere a lot deeper. And you realize that it's for you. Yoga is for you. And I just knew I needed to get into training, not later, but now. Mm-hmm. And so I did it, and it was crazy. And like I was telling you earlier before we started the podcast, when you start walking on the path that you're meant to, everything just falls into line without almost even effort. It just organically opens up. And so here we are now, yoga teacher, but I feel like I'm multifaceted. I'm a friend, I'm a mom, I'm a wife, I'm, a daughter, and just trying to basically raise good people. That's and right. have a positive impact. I mean, corporate life was not for me. I knew that.
What did you study at Auburn, if I may ask?
So I was a psych major. So, I mean, maybe this probably shouldn't be a shock that I ended up being a yoga teacher, but I did. I always was super intrigued about everybody else's story and the genesis of it and why we do the things we do, why we process things the way we process them. When I graduated from Auburn, the idea of going on to grad school, it's not that it wasn't an option. It just didn't even occur to me. I just literally thought like, okay, you go, you get a job, and then you just become a grown-up. And there were so many times that I thought about going back to school to get my doctorate, but, money. So I just basically, after having a psych degree in undergrad, you're kind of made for just sales. So that's what I did for a while. And then I became a recruiter. I'm going to stay-at-home mom, which was not the plan. Originally, it was great. It was a wonderful gift, but I knew that that's not what I wanted to do forever. Now that my girls are more independent, I decided it was time to do more and to start, turning my focus back towards investing in other people and really trying to make that positive impact.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that lovely introduction.
I'm sorry, that was a very long introduction. You're going to have to edit that.
No, that was awesome. But I love how you said when you kind of step into what you're supposed to be doing and everything just flows. It's like the doorways just kind of open up, you know? And I know, Mimi, we kind of talked about like embodiment and stepping into who you are. To me, that's what embodiment is.
Mhm.
Do you
Mm.
feel like that too, Mimi?
Yeah, I would probably say for me, when I think embodiment, I think like being present within your vessel in a
Mhm.
way that brings you to the present and the here and now, and there's nothing outside of that. Um, and just being in tune with your body and not being like afraid of it and giving positive or neutral messages. But because I feel like I know this is a little bit, hopefully not too off topic, but body positivity has been a really big movement, in general. And I was like super behind that for like a really long time.
Mhm.
But now I've kind of moved to like more body neutral.
Mhm.
Because I think sometimes body positivity, it leads to like you always have to feel good about yourself. And if you feel like, oh, I wish I could change a little bit of that, it's like, oh no, I have to always be positive. I can't ever have a negative thought. And I feel like yoga kind of helps in that sense of like, if something hurts, you don't push through it,
Mhm.
or whatever your body is telling you that day, you're like, oh, I can't do that today.
Yeah.
It's saying no. Or, I do want to improve in this area or whatever, but it's still like you're there and you're neutral and you're seeing yourself almost outside of yourself, if that makes sense in some ways.
Mhm.
So being more neutral of just like, this is my body, this is my vessel, and it is inherently like good and it's for me and not working against me kind of thing. So being able to kind of look at it more in a neutral light versus like I always have to feel amazing,
Right.
but more just like feeling the feel and then moving past it.
Mhm.
Like seeing it, acknowledging it, and then we move on, not
Mhm.
dwelling on it. So
Amanda, how important, Mimi, that was awesome. How important is it as far as when you're doing or instructing those yoga positions
Mhm.
to breathe through it?
Well, so, okay, I do want to answer that, but I do also want to touch on what Mimi was just saying.
Yeah.
Where one thing I love about yoga is that you are to come as you are.
Mhm.
And there's no body positivity or body negativity because that brings focus to your body. It's not about your container. It's about what's going on inside and connecting to that vessel, to that container, based on whether you're positive or negative about it. And I think one thing that's great about yoga is that it encourages you to recognize, it's okay to acknowledge, do I feel negative today about my body or positive? See that and then let it go and return your focus to something that's deeper, to something that's more valuable, which isn't the outside. It's not the container. But anyways, I just wanted to add to that. And I love what Mimi was getting
yes.
there.
Mhm.
And I hope I didn't hijack it and turn it into something else, but I was feeling that comment.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But back to, so you were saying about teaching the pose, the actual physical side.
Mhm.
Is that what you were asking?
No, not necessarily the physical. Well, I guess the physical and within yourself too, where you're breathing. I notice sometimes with yoga, people are not actually, um, like Mimi said, staying in that position and working through it
Yeah.
and correctly breathing within that position.
So I love this question
Yeah.
because, like I told you, I have practiced yoga for over 10 years. And of course, any of us who have ever been in a studio, in a gym yoga class, have watched a video, teachers are always harping on inhale, exhale, stay connected to your breath. And you're constantly thinking, well, no shit. Otherwise, I would have an accidental shavasana. Like, of course, I'm going to be breathing. And I feel like nobody ever really explains why it's so important to connect with that breath. And it's a beautiful thing because when you get deeper into yoga, past the physical, past the asana, like the poses, you realize that what you're really doing is connecting your whole, your physical, your mental. It's more that Eastern mentality that we, instead of being compartmentalized, we're all like one big ball of energy, basically. And with that breath, I know it sounds like I'm digressing, but with that breath, it's when you're focusing on the inhale and exhale, you're truly staying present and you're focusing on the only thing you have right now. You're not thinking about what happened yesterday because you currently have that. No, it's gone. It's already passed. And then you're not focusing on what's happening 5 minutes from now, because guess what? There's a chance that could be gone too. If you focus on your breath right here, right now, it's the only thing you can actually control. And there's something very beautiful to that. And it also, on a physiological level, it connects you directly to your nervous system. And this is the part that I don't feel like, of course, you can't sit here in every yoga class going on and on about the physiological side of it. But when you're taking those deep inhales, it's connecting with your nervous system in the way that, you know, you're fight or flight. So it puts you in that fight and flight mode where you're energizing your body and literally direct dialing your nervous system, saying like, we're getting ready for something. But then when you control and exhale, you're also telling your nervous system, it's okay, we can calm down. And you truly, like, there are scientific studies and neurological studies that it truly does with that mindful and controlled breathing. If you can learn to harness that, you can basically control yourself in traffic, you know, when you're fighting with your spouse, when your kids are pissing you off, you know, like in any situation where you need to think with your mind as opposed to your emotions. That's really where yoga benefits you. And often that doesn't come for a really long time. It certainly didn't for me. But when that light bulb finally clicks, then you get it. It's, your glasses are off, like you forever see like the benefits. And it's like a domino effect. You see, once you learn to control your breath, there's so many other things that you can control in your life that once felt like somebody else had control over. No, they actually don't. It's you, you know. So I don't know. I know that was like a really
No, that was great. Yeah, that was great.
But yeah, and then even on a and cut me off at any time, but even on like a more personal level, I'm 37 years old. I've got a story just like everybody else. We've all been through our highs, our lows in life, and I always considered myself a very strong of mind person. You know, I live on a level that's typically up here when it comes to happy, sad, you know what I'm saying? Like, I feel like I vibrate at a higher vibration. But a few years ago, I went through this phase where I started waking up out of nowhere with nocturnal panic attacks. And have you ever had a panic attack?
No.
I have.
No.
Maybe, have you had one?
Yeah, I've had, yeah, definitely.
They're absolutely terrifying, right? Like, you truly feel like you're gonna die.
Yeah.
And so, anyways, all that to say that it was in the middle of one night and I woke up in a panic attack and my body just felt wrong. And the best way I can describe it is, you know, a lot of young people won't get this reference, but back in the day when you'd have a TV on late at night and all the shows were off and it would start to scramble and you'd see the black and white scramble on TV. That's how I felt inside. And it was just, oh my God, this is wrong. Like, am I dying? What's going on? And I literally didn't know what to do. So I was like, I'll just get in the shower. And so I hopped in the shower and I bent over and I immediately just started thinking, control your inhales and your exhales. Just breathe for a count of 4. Let it out for a count of 4. And within, what felt like 2 hours, but it was probably 2 minutes, I was able to pull myself back off the ledge, go from that irrational, emotional mind of, oh my God, I'm dying, something's wrong, to regain control, to even the point where any panic attack that precipitated after that, it's like as soon as I recognized what was coming, I immediately had the confidence to be like, I got this.
Mm-hmm.
I can breathe it out. And, you know, to me, that's what really drove it home. I'm like, oh, wow, it's an action. You can really control things if you just start with something as simple as your breath, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
Mimi,
that's a really long answer.
no, and I have a question about that with breath work too, because I
Mhm.
think that's so important. But before I go into that, Mimi, did you have anything to say about
Um,
what Amanda was talking about?
yeah, I would probably say from like the scientific and also like the like anxiety and all that stuff. So I was diagnosed with complex PTSD a few years ago, about I think maybe 2 now. And um what was so complex PTSD is basically like different. It wasn't one event that has caused like PTSD. It's like multiple over a prolonged period of time.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so like, but most of the reasons why, um, so like religious trauma, embodiment, they tell you to do yoga and do breath work. Um, like going through any sort of abuse, they talk about yoga, embodiment, doing breath work, or doing having a stroke. Yoga was suggested for like balance and strength.
Oh, I
So like
didn't know that.
yeah, all these different
Wow.
obviously we were physically able to do it, but um it just kept popping up over and over and over again. And for anxiety, yoga, breath work, or panic attacks to like calm your nervous system down and saying we're okay, we're no longer in fight or flight. It's the whole breath work thing. So I was like, this keeps coming up again and
Mm-hmm.
again and again.
Mm-hmm.
So there's definitely something to it. And there's definitely studies that show that it's improving different things. It also helps you with cardiovascular stuff because when you're doing deep inhales, you're actually, working your lungs, you're working your heart, you're helping your muscles, you're stretching, so there's obviously a lot to it. But I just kept noticing every single thing I had gone through, a lot of the options were like, hey, have you thought about doing yoga and breath work? And I'm like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
all right, maybe I need to check this out. So 100%.
Yeah.
It's really helped a lot, I think. So
I mean, and it goes hand in hand too, right? Like breath work and yoga,
mhm.
I would think, just in general. Amanda, like how you were saying when you had that panic attack and you knew what to do and just by controlling your breath, you're literally just focusing on what you have control over too, you
Yeah.
know? Yeah. It really does change a lot of things, I think. If more people practice it, I think it can help, you know?
Well, and think about how, like, I obviously, like, those of us who have children,
Mhm.
you are literally watching a science experiment every day. You are watching a case study and personalities develop. And if something happens, this is the result. Like, you see that direct, if this, then that. And it's been so interesting, especially like you and I were joking about how we were raised in a different time
Yeah.
where, I mean, shoot, we didn't have Netflix.
Right.
Set that aside and they were just like, be back for dinner, and that means be back by dark. You don't have a cell phone,
Right.
you don't get kidnapped. I mean, things were just really, really different. And I think we've come so far. I think
Mhm.
there's so many positives that people don't actually consider because some of the negatives of the zeitgeist we're living in are so glaring.
Mhm.
Um, and to speak to some of those negatives, I think we're living in a day and age where you want results now or
Mhm.
yesterday. Like you
Right.
don't wait for gratification, like that long-term gratification that you work towards. You want it now, and if you're not getting it now, you're not doing it anymore.
Mhm.
I think yoga teaches you that there's so much benefit in delayed gratification. There's so much benefit in controlling yourself to wait, to pause, to not just be reactionary. And, whether that's emotional, physical, like all these different benefits of it. And yeah, I mean, I love imparting that to my girls, and I've seen a huge benefit in them. I mean, teaching them to pause and breathe. I mean, different words might come out of their mouth afterwards, as opposed to if they just automatically responded.
Mm-hmm.
It's a totally different story that follows that. Like
So they're actually thinking about what they're saying for not, mindfulness.
Yeah.
It really, yoga helps with mindfulness. Breath work helps with mindfulness, and awareness too. That is life-changing. Go ahead. I'm sorry, I interrupted you.
Oh, no, we're on the same page. You didn't interrupt at all. I think there are so many, obviously I could sit here and fangirl all day about every facet of yoga, but I know what it's done for me, and I'm still a work in progress. I mean, we all are. Isn't that, I don't know, yoga has reframed my view of a lot of things as well. Like, Mimi and I were talking about this the other day, life has changed. Things are constantly changing. And because we're human, change and the unknown are so often seen as scary or of negative. But what if we reframe that and saw the potential in change? Like, think about any great moment in your life. It was probably attached to a moment where you changed as a person, where you grew, where something went from being the day in, day out, wash, rinse, repeat, to changing and trying something different. And I think yoga like reframes your perspective, where every day truly is an opportunity to level up. It's an opportunity to become a better version of what you were yesterday. As long as you're still breathing, there's no ceiling, And I love that. And I love too that yoga does not believe in perfection, because perfection is a ceiling. It's a stopping point. Yoga says, a practice makes better. Practice doesn't make perfect. You can keep going. And to me, that's wow,
Like you said, come as you are
Mhm.
earlier. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mimi, so how long have you been practicing yoga now?
Not long.
Right.
Like maybe, I don't know. I mean, really only like a few months, to be honest.
But you really enjoy it though, right?
I love it.
See?
Okay. So, me and Amanda have talked about this, kind of coming from like the gym rat like perspective at first. So I love the gym. It's my place. I typically don't like classes or like group activities. I like to put on my headphones and leave me alone when I exercise. So I took my first yoga class yesterday because I've always done it at home, and I went to Amanda's studio where she's working. But I learned it from YouTube by myself, and then I bought a book and literally went through like pictures and descriptions of asanas. And I was like, I feel like so old school right now, but it helped me because it made me go like thing by thing, and I would read like the benefits of it and whatever. But not very long. My question to you guys is your perspective and thoughts on yoga when you first started, or maybe first heard about it, or whatever, point of origin you want to start at, and then like to now, like has that changed dramatically? Was it a very small jump? Kind of that question, I guess.
Can I go first?
You can do whatever you
So
want. It's your podcast, Robin.
okay.
You're the leader, friend. You're in charge.
You are.
So when I first started, I can remember the first time I've ever taken a class. the next day, my knees were, it felt like needles were going through my knees because I was in so much pain. I was not flexible, just stretching, and it was just very hard. And now I look at myself and I am able to, you know, stand up and I guess forward fold. I don't know if I'm saying the terms correctly, so please forgive me, and actually touch my hands flat on the ground. And I'm 5'8", and so I'm pretty tall, I'm pretty tall. But just flexibility wise, it's amazing. It's
Mhm.
a, it's done wonders, and I'm actually surprised, but I'm not because I've been working on it, you know. So yeah.
I like it. I like it. So, did you grow up where it was like, and were your thoughts of it like, oh, this is amazing and it's gonna be amazing and I'm gonna do it, or was it more like, oh, that's some woo woo stuff and that's for the weirdos over there doing
So
their
no, no, I don't think anything. Well, you know Mimi, how I am.
yeah.
I'm pretty much out there with everything. So nothing surprises me. But I've always wanted to learn. Um, but I didn't grow up with it. I grew up with dancing, and over time I stopped. So I lost my flexibility, but I didn't grow up with it.
So I actually, Robin, I'm the same as you. Like yoga really wasn't growing up, it was not on my radar, especially coming from the Northeast, then moving to Georgia. I mean, I guess anytime I really heard about yoga, I was like, all right, California. All right, it's
Mm,
those over there, like they do it. And like I was saying to y'all, like the first time I ever took a class in my early 20s, I was super turned off. I thought it was boring. It was slow. I'm like, where's the cardio? If I'm in here for an hour, I need to make it count. Like, what is going on? And I'm just embarrassed by my behavior back then. But once I came back to it and started practicing again, kind of like Mimi was saying, I was your more like gym rat yogi. I never was a studio yogi. I didn't seek it out in like a studio form. They just offered it at the gym I went to, and I was like, yeah, I'll give it a shot. I used to be bendy, flexible, and I think that's what everybody associates yoga with. And which, yes, it is a factor. It is a facet of it. It's a benefit for longevity of health to be you know flexible. Honestly, it all goes down to like your spine flexibility. But I really, I started leaning in on it because I used to run a lot. I'd lift a lot of weights. And I always had that like push mentality. If your trainer said, just give me 10 more reps, in my mind, I would think, oh, I'll give you 12. I can go 12. And I would just keep pushing to the point where I would get injured. Or, I'd end up having to get steroid shots in my hips. And I remember being like, all right, let me give this yoga thing a try again. And I remember at Lifetime, which is where I still am practicing and I teach there now. But at Lifetime, I started going to some of their more, they call it flow, but what you would probably call it a studio would be more of a power flow class. And I really felt the sweat, the juice was worth the squeeze, basically. Like it was a lot of work. I was dripping sweat by the time I left, exhausted. I mean, like muscles were shaking
mm,
that hadn't moved like that. I mean, I discovered muscles I didn't even know I had. But I remember walking out, not only just like that physical exhaustion, but my cup was full. Like I felt like, damn, I could take on the world right now.
mhm.
And I don't know many physical. I feel like dancing, you could probably get that from, there karate, like there are certain physical practices that I feel like you walk away feeling that true fulfillment. But in just a typical, like, I'm gonna go to the gym, run 3 miles, and then maybe throw up a few weights, you don't want that in there feeling truly invigorated. And I mean, that was what hooked me. And then years later, my aha moment in class where it was just like, ooh, am I leaking? Like, am I crying? I'm feeling things. I'm feeling emotions. And I think everybody, if you stick with yoga, you hit that point where all of a sudden you're like, is anybody else feeling this? Somebody put something in my water and it's worth it. So anytime somebody tells me they're not feeling it, I'm like, just hang in there. Try
Mhm.
somebody else out. I might not be your flavor. Try a
Mhm.
different teacher. Maybe you're a yin person and you don't know it. Or, I mean, there are so many different flavors.
Is that what Mimi, I'm sorry if you had a question. I just wanted to piggyback on that, Amanda.
Mhm.
Is that what made you become a yoga instructor?
No.
Like at that
Well,
moment? What?
yes and no.
Okay.
So I fell in love with yoga. I had that aha moment where I was just like, oh my gosh, this feels amazing. It feels so good. But I also had a situation in the past 2 years, and I confided in Mimi about this the other day, where we ended up having to move out of our home to get away from a certain danger.
Mhm.
And we completely changed up our lives. We're going through therapy. And it just dawned on me. I was like, my husband and I were going back and forth with how we were kind of healing ourselves.
Mhm.
And my healing process was I want to make what happened to us not worthless. Does that make sense? Like I wanted to turn it into a motivation. I wanted to turn it into something powerful where I was like, nope, not anybody else. I'm going to help. And that's when I decided there was one day in class and Maria Winnihan's class at Lifetime, I'll never forget it. And I remember laying in Shavasana and all of a sudden it came to me and I was like, I am going to become a yoga teacher so I can teach children and I can let them know that they are safe and they are loved and they are protected and they have someone to talk to. And that, like, in that moment, I was like, I'm doing it and I'm doing it now. And it's wild because the way that I ended up getting into a training program, even at the time I thought fell into my lap, but it was so kismet. It was so meant to be.
Mhm.
Where I just, again, like I was saying earlier, I knew I was on the right path. And those doors I went through training opened up for me. As soon as I graduated, jobs started rolling in. And this isn't me being like, oh my gosh, I'm amazing. And know
Right.
that I'm coming to you humbly, like I love what I do. I genuinely want to share and serve. But I trained with 17 people. I think me and 3 other people are actually teaching. Um, but none of them have started a children's program. I'm not saying they haven't gone their own path and done wonderful things, but I went into it wanting to work with kids.
Mhm.
Just got handed to me right
Mhm.
after I graduated. I mean, literally out the gate.
It
And
it led you onto this path.
it really did. And
Right. Mhm.
I decided to, when I was going through yoga training, which I would encourage to anybody, even if you didn't want to be a yoga teacher, if it was truly just to deepen your practice and educate you on all the limbs of yoga, all the benefits of yoga, where you can weave it into your life, into your family's life, your friends, just really change the way you see the world. I would definitely encourage it to anybody. Um, but yeah, I went through my training and legit, it just, I don't know. I mean, I feel like everything I wanted to do, I was able to accomplish. And I even came to it for the first time in my life. I've always been a people pleaser.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
telling the full truth has always been very hard for me. And I don't mean in the way that, like, oh, I'm a compulsive liar. When I say full truth, I mean saying things that could really hurt people's feelings or let people down. If somebody
Mhm.
asks me something, I always had the hardest time saying no. I was more so that person that was like, I'm going to say yes and I'm going to fit it in and make it work, even at the cost of my well being.
Mhm.
And I think going through training really taught me you're not benefiting anybody if you aren't taking care of yourself first. And so I truly made a promise to myself when I graduated, I will only walk through the doors that are very clearly for me. And if there are any doors that I feel like I'm having to push open or that just aren't seeming to be a fit, I'm going to walk away. And I'm going to walk away knowing like somebody else can do it better there than I could. And that's okay. Or it's just not for me. And that has truly served me so much. I've said no so much more than I have said yes in this past year. And I've been happier than I've ever been in 37 years.
I
And
love that. I
yes,
love that. Yes, me
I that.
too.
Like everybody, especially women, I feel like we
Yeah.
all are so yes, 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 Susie happy. And we need to fucking cut that out. Like
Right. Right.
you're not serving anyone
Hmm.
by being that person because your kettle will boil over eventually and it's going to burn a lot of people. So don't get there. So, and I'm still a work in progress. Like I was saying earlier, like, but I'm making that change,
Yes.
or at least I'm trying. So,
I love that. Because seriously, every day I I say these affirmations, and one thing is like, okay, you have to put yourself first. Like,
mhm,
and it's okay. Like, it is okay.
mhm,
I love that you said you're not hurting anybody but yourself, because it's so true.
yep.
And
What
then,
I, oh, I'm so sorry, I did not mean to hijack.
no, 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 of course not. No, no, go ahead.
So I have this therapist,
Mhm.
and I don't know if I can like give him a shout. I love him so much. I'm pretty sure I've even told maybe about him, but he's amazing. He's hard nosed. He's not there to be your friend.
Mhm.
Like he is a therapist that when you are finally ready to do work and you are ready to look at the ugly stuff and make change, that scary change we talked about, he's your guy. And
Mhm.
I remember one of my first sessions with him this year. I've gone through a few sessions with him. He's one of those guys that like you work on one thing. Once you complete it, he doesn't want to keep you coming back to pay his mortgage. He legit is like, do you feel good right now? Okay, call me when you need me again. He's
Mhm.
kind of therapist, but anyways, I
Mhm.
digress. I remember sitting there in one of my sessions this year, and I was talking specifically about a situation with my husband, and I was like, I don't want to sound like a bitch. And he stopped me, and he was like, I don't ever want to hear you say that again. And I was like, wait, what? He was like, why you speaking how you feel? Why would that ever translate to you being a bitch?
Mhm.
And I think it was the first time somebody ever said to me, basically, just because you're saying something that might not please the other person,
Mhm.
that does not automatically mean you're a bitch. And I don't know if that just goes for us people pleasers or anybody in general, but like it was very impactful for me. And I carried it with me very much. And anytime I felt myself falling back into my old habits of people pleasing and like, "Ah, I can do it even though I don't want to," like I think to myself, no, I'm not being a bitch. Like
Right.
I am investing in me and
Right.
for doing the best I can for everybody else around me. And I'm going to speak my truth and be genuine. And it has served me every single time this year.
That's
And
like your aha moment, kind of.
it really is, which is crazy too, because
Yeah.
when you have one aha moment, it leads to another one, and leads to another one, and then another one, and yeah,
You're
it's
flowing. You're in the flow. Literally, right? You're in I love it. Mimi, Mimi, do you feel like have you had any aha moments just in general with everything that you have gone through in the past year?
Mm-hmm.
'Cause you
Like relating to life or yoga or
anything in everything life.
girl, you've had a life.
Yes.
yeah. Um, hmm. Man, I've had a lot.
Mhm.
Um, I feel like a lot of mine are pretty heavy. I feel like for me, mm, I realized how, like, you know how people say your health is wealth,
Mhm.
and you're like, yeah, yeah, yeah. But it that is 100% true.
Yeah.
Um, so I would say because I've had some weird experiences in the last year medically, and me and the Grim Reaper, high-fiving occasionally. Um, I realized that like there was multiple times where I thought I would die, and uh like laying there and like all my systems are starting, like I'm starting to lose, a whole side, and all you can do is lay there and not do, and there's nothing you can do. Or you're in excruciating pain and you're bleeding internally and everyone's freaking out, and you're just there. I think the whole, your health is everything, so I will protect that at all costs.
Mhm.
Now I felt like I would give it away quickly, like my mental, my emotional, and my spiritual health, to please other people, um and also just realizing how precious every moment is. Because I know it's like super dramatic, but there's several times where I was like, this might be it, and the whole like life flashing before your eyes kind of thing.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Of I feel like the things that flashed before my eyes were like moments of like laughing with my siblings, or
Mhm.
drinking wine with my husband at like a vineyard and we're enjoying our time, or um, doing things I genuinely enjoy. Like all those things that came to my mind were like nothing about how much money I had, or the things like, all the things that are constantly on the forefront of my brain most days.
Mhm.
It was like all those little things. Those are legit the most important thing. Um, and to protect your health at all costs. So with the whole like saying no thing,
Mhm.
I realize a lot of people in my life that I love and respect are people who aren't afraid to hurt people's feelings, and are very like a married one, but like they just know who they are, and they know
Mhm.
what they stand for.
Mhm.
They know their opinions and their beliefs, and they have boundaries, and they like no is a complete sentence, and they're very disagreeable, not in the way of they're mean or rude, but they're just not afraid to be disagreeable, because I'm extremely agreeable. Like I've scored so high on like all the tests with that, where it's like 90%, where I'm disagreeing with everybody and everything because I want to be liked or loved, or I just want everyone to jive. So I definitely said, don't be afraid to say no, especially when it comes to anything around your health or anything else. Because life is short, and if you don't want to be somewhere or spend time with somebody or whatever, I'm okay saying nope, because you never know. Honestly, you never know when
Right.
today could be the day. Um, so I don't know. I feel like I felt more everything's so much more precious to me now, in a very like real way, I guess. So yeah, that's what I would say. So
Well, and too, it kind of while you were saying that, as far as really um what meant to you the most, like
mm,
in your life, it's the little things that we stress about that really doesn't even matter, and every day I try and say to myself, okay, you know, okay, so what? The house is a mess. So what? Dinner's not ready, or and it's like, okay, let me sit here and breathe and remember what actually does matter.
mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So I love
Yeah,
that you said that. Thank you for sharing that.
anytime,
Yeah,
anytime.
yeah. So Amanda, back to the kids program.
Yeah.
What exactly is it? Do you want to kind of go talk about that a little bit more?
Well, yes, I would love to.
Okay.
So, yeah, so going back, and I promise I won't make this too long of a story, but right when I was graduating from my training,
Mhm.
which my training was not a children's yoga training, it was actually a trauma yoga training. And so I went through that. And then I immediately was like, okay, I want to get trained in children's. And I knew like once you get out of, so think of YTT, yoga teacher training, as a buffet. Like it's a smorgasbord. You get vinyasa thrown at you, yin, like you're just basically sampling the world of yoga. And that's your 200 hour. But then after you can add on specific certifications. So like some people go on to have children's yoga, or some people go on to do like veteran yoga, or, you can basically diversify your portfolio. But anyways,
Okay. I didn't know that. Thank you for
yes.
explaining that. Okay.
Yeah, and then you also can go into your 300 hour, which is much more focused on the direction that you want to go into. But I knew I wanted to do a children's program, so I found one online that had like great reviews, went through it, and it was actually really cool because shoot, I wish I had a better brain, but I want to say it was through Yoga Alliance that I found it. But basically, it was this guy who worked in inner city New York, with a lot of underprivileged children. And so he was trying to create a safe space for them, a place for them to go to obviously learn how to self regulate and to control things that they actually could control, while the things around them that they couldn't, didn't overwhelm them. So, anyways, I did that training thinking that would make me totally prepared. And so then I legit finished that training in a matter of days. It wasn't something that took like weeks or anything like that. I think it was like, I don't know, 50 hours or something. But anyways, I got that done. And immediately I started talking with Lifetime, and they legit were like, hey, we want to bring you on as basically like a grown up yoga teacher, but we just don't have space right now. Would you be interested? Like, this is a huge long shot, but would you be interested in kids? And I legit was like,
Wow.
me, I'm like covering the phone. I'm like, babe,
Yeah.
like, I want me to start the kids program.
Wow.
What was so cool is they even were like, it's yours. Like, create it however you want. Your basic, your class structure is totally up to you. Like, there's no set rule on how I had to do it. And so I did. I certainly had this like vision in my mind, which is so funny because anybody who has kids or who has ever worked with kids realizes that anything you pre-plan, you might as well friggin' throw out the window. So
Yes.
it never goes the way you plan. But one thing that's so beautiful is like working with these kids. And I remember my first day. So my age range starting out, just to see if anybody would be interested. And I remember going into this just being like, universe, God, energy, whatever the hell is in control here, like, give me the words, give me the sight, give me the ability to serve in the way that I need to serve. Like,
Mm.
I don't know what I'm stepping into, but I know I want to help. And I remember going to my first class, and it was a full class. And it was the first time I was showing up on the schedule. And I had a mixed group of boys and girls. I expected it to mainly be girls. And one thing, as a side note, that I always think is cute is boys. Every single time I've got one boy who comes to class who's like, my mom made me come. I don't want to be here. And I'm like, okay, we'll just try it out, see if you like it. They're the first one to leave and be like, can I come back next week? Like it always happens. But anyways, so we get into the studio, which I thought really hard for us to actually be in a studio. So like it means business time. You're in those four walls. This is serious. You're in a different space, a safe space. And I just immediately started talking about, this mat is your island. This is your home. Nobody else is invited onto it unless you invite them there. This is your body.
Mhm.
No one else is invited to this body other than you, just like you are not invited onto anybody else's. And it really started with that dialogue of respecting yours and other people's spaces.
Mhm.
And there are days where we can be more physical, where the kids, you can tell there's like a buzz of energy. They want to like move around. So we'll flow through like a sun A and I'll teach them warrior 1, 2, and 3. And then we'll play a modified yoga game like yoga four corners or, like freeze statue, or I'll turn music on and off and they're all freezing in yoga poses. But then we'll have other days where 80% of the class is them talking and wanting to tell you about your day. And what's been so cool is, like I was telling you, the training that I did was kids from inner city New York who, they're from, I guess, what you could kind of consider a stereotypical, what you would see in movies as a disadvantaged child who has either one parent in the house, maybe they're working multiple jobs, they're never home, maybe this kid's being raised by their siblings, what have you, basically kind of suffering from what we would call now like some type of neglect,
Mhm.
and just trying to find their way and find a good role model. But what's been really, really eye-opening, and I hope this doesn't come out the wrong way, but I live in Alpharetta.
Mhm.
These are a lot of affluent people. They have money. Most of the kids have mother, father homes. They both have, or they usually have everything at their fingertips.
Mhm.
They're just as neglected as these kids whose parents aren't around. Like, instead of a parent not being home and not being present because of that physically, these kids get an iPad shoved in their face and a fucking go make yourself busy. Leave me alone. And so when they come to yoga, when they come to this space, they want to be seen, they want to be heard, they want to be looked at, they want to feel important. And the coolest thing is that I know they're not my children. I'm not in any way, shape, or form planning on saving the world with kids, but like to be one person that they see 1 day a week, who they know, like, oh, look at this Miss Smith. It's so good to see you. Like, you see
Mhm.
their faces light up. And it's just one other person outside of their immediate bubble. They're like, well, she gives a shit.
Mhm.
And so these classes, like I said, some days they're more physical, some days they're a lot more talking and a lot more like, okay, well, so you had this situation in the lunchroom where somebody said something mean to you. Do you think that's more about you or do you think it's more about them? And so we will literally talk about it a little bit like maybe they're hurting and that's why they're lashing out. It's not because there's something wrong with you.
Mhm.
And you can see it sinking in.
Mhm. Mhm.
So
Mhm.
really, basically, it's group therapy with kids some days, but it's such a cool forum and it's a
It's
cool opportunity.
it's a safe space. It
It
sounds like, right? Mhm.
really is, and they've created their own little. I mean, it's the most diverse group of kids. Like you got boys, girls, the age range can change from one day to the next.
Mhm.
Got little boys who are big into sports. You've got little girls who are into dancing and vice versa. And somehow they've created their own little motley crew where when you get in this room and in this space together, they're very supportive of each other. There's one thing I talk about a lot is like, you are not here for competition. If you look around, look for inspiration, look for somebody to say, like, oh, I want to try that, as opposed to being like, well, I can't do that. Well, give it a shot. Like, I just feel like it's a reframing of mentality. And it's also a reminder, like I was saying to you earlier, the way we always start class, telling them, this is your body. Only you have the right to touch your body. And that's very important to me. And then one other component of my class that I always weave in is I give each kid an opportunity to get up on the teacher's mat and teach a pose, their favorite pose, which I know it sounds silly, but to learn to speak in front of other people, I mean, that's some intimidating shit.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you will not believe these kids who get up there and they're like, okay, I want to do tree pose today. And it's but the freaking smile on their faces after they do it, like they're proud. They did something so exciting for the day. And it's always
Mhm.
great to I love to hear after they leave being like running to their mom or dad, being like, look, will you sign me up again for next week? Like it's just affirming that
Mhm.
like kids need this. But grown-ups need it too, but like again, get them young, man.
Mhm.
Like get that in there, that self-confidence, that awareness, that
Yeah.
individuality. It's
That's
so
awesome. I mean, I literally, you're like changing society. I mean, seriously, by starting them out so young,
Mhm.
and hopefully they'll continue on through that throughout their journey of their life.
Yeah.
And the world can change just by one person. Isn't that crazy?
I hope, yeah, and I truly am. I've always been a believer in that, and I don't think like I think Mimi has heard me pontificate about this before, but like I am, and I know a lot of people be like, "Oh, all right, ignorance is bliss." For this chick, I don't watch the news.
Same.
Social media, I only get on there literally for yoga postings. Like I keep it very professional
Mhm.
because we are surrounded by so much negativity, so much misinformation. If you just walk outside your door, people are, news is lying.
Yeah.
It is not as friggin' doom and gloom as they want to make it seem. And I am so sick of it. And it drives me nuts. And I'll even throw my husband on blast. I love him to death. To the day I die. He is one of the first ones to be like, ah, fake news. Like, this is so annoying. Yet he's also one of the first to turn the news on. And I'm like, you just said.
Right. Because it's constantly feeding him.
And that's, I'm like, why would you literally be like, this is some bullshit? I'm going to watch it.
Right. Right. Because it's entertainment. It's literally entertainment. And that's sad. Yeah, it's sad. I'm the same. I do not watch the news. I usually get my news from clients, and depending on who it is, it just change it's a whole different big range of news. And
Yeah,
I'm
dude,
like,
if
okay,
it's important enough, my mom will tell me about it,
yes.
or it'll be on Barstool.
Yeah.
Either or, like it'll pop up somewhere. But really, at the end of the day, like I don't think we were meant. Yes, there are so many atrocities that happen in the world, and God, we could go on a huge tangent about how awful some things can be, and just unjust, and just downright fucking evil.
Hmm.
But there is a part of me that I don't think we were ever made to take on mentally the world suffering. Does that make sense? Like, I feel
Hmm.
like we were meant to be in townships. We were meant to be in smaller societal groups where you don't get inundated with what's going on the other side of the world. Because let's think about it. You really can't do shit about it unless you're willing to put feet on the ground and
Hmm.
really
Right.
just stressing yourself out and getting triggered left and right. Yes, you can be sad all day long, but you being sad, does that do shit for them? No.
Right.
You know? So I
Right.
think it starts with create good people at home.
Hmm.
Be the good person at home.
Hmm.
And encourage other people to be the good people at home. And it will spread. There will be a ripple effect.
Yes, definitely.
Mhm.
Definitely. I love that. I love that. I mean, just, you know, that's why I'm always trying to have some kind of positive thought, even though, I'm human. I have
Mhm.
my days, of course, but the sun always shines.
Mhm.
There's always balance to it. It's a yin and yang effect, but it's like, how am I going to look at this situation? I can either look at it as what it is and, know that tomorrow's going to be a new day, or I can sit here and be sad about something or, be depressed. It's all about perspective. So I
Mhm.
love that.
Well, and I know for a fact, and not to speak for Mimi, and obviously I know you can speak for yourself, Mimi, but I know with everything she and I have discussed that she's been through, it has set her in a different realm from those who have not experienced the things that she has. So going back to perspective, her perspective is so different, from other 20 something year olds who are going out and they're just like, where are we bar hopping today?
Hmm.
And I don't know. I think she's worked so much on herself and her mental health
Yeah.
that that's what you can do on an individual level, right? I'm sorry, I don't mean to like totally speak for you, girl.
Yes.
I'm just proud of you. Okay, that's all.
Praise me. Yes, praise me. No, but what you were saying earlier with like the whole global scale, like I'm not on social and haven't been for a couple of years. And I realized that like we are now as human beings that I mean people in very bad situations or in countries that don't have a lot of things still have smartphones. Um like we are playing on a global scale. When we're posting on social, it's a global scale. Twitter, Facebook, the news. I think I totally agree that we're not meant to live at a global scale. And we're competing on a global scale with when you post something, it's against every beautiful model in the world. If you're modeling, if you're posting about hair, it's every hairdresser ever. Um, so I think we do need to shrink our world a little bit, and make it more about just impacting the community that you're around,
Hmm.
especially for the average Joe Schmo and myself, um, like impacting the people that are in your bubble. Um, but perspective really is everything. I know. I feel like I've gone through a lot of like changing. I know my husband would probably agree that I've changed a lot, hopefully for the better. But um, I do think that I'm really bad at knowing my emotions. I'm one of those people who I don't know how I feel. so so yoga, bring it back to yoga, like yoga's helped me as well as other things. Like I need a physical thing to bring me into my emotions a lot of the time. So that's why I'm a very physical touch person. And like just being physical, whether I'm working out or yoga, I go, oh, why am I hurting here? Or why am I tense here? I'm holding my breath. I'm clenching my jaw. Um, that probably means I'm anxious. My chest is tight. Recognizing those physical things made me realize that I was like, oh, I'm anxious. Or I now with after doing yoga, I catch myself. I'm like, oh, I'm holding my breath. Like I'll be walking around my day and I'll like won't be breathing, um or physical pain that's really more of like emotional thing where I realize how my brain won't get off something. Like I'll keep having repetitive thoughts. So I feel like it's helped me catch things quicker to where I go, oh, my shoulders are up at my ears, and I'm like, oh, okay, or just little things like that. Like I check in more.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, that's kind of my whole spiel. But thank you for my compliment. Growing and stuff.
Fan you.
Mimi, you have a lot of awareness. I love it.
Yes. Yeah, I've worked really hard because I grew up where emotions were not talked about as much.
Hmm.
So yeah, I think it's been really good. And also when my husband met me, God bless him, or universe bless him, really. But he was like, I think he was generally just shocked about it. He's like, oh, like you really have no idea like what's going on with my emotions. So he's been better at helping me with that because he knows how he feels. He's
Hmm.
like, I'm angry and here's why. And it's like one sentence. And I'm like, and then I was like, and I felt like, but I don't know. Like I have this huge circle, like I can't figure it out. So
But
uh,
it sounds like you're working on yourself.
I'm trying.
Yeah,
I always want to be better.
that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, we'll get there one day.
Yes. Okay, well, I know it's getting kind of late, and I know that I feel like we can go on forever and ever.
Yo, I could chat for hours. I'm like the wrong person for you to bring on a podcast because you're like, oh,
No, well, I would
he's
love
gonna be in the background like, oh.
I would love to have you back on for like a part two. I would love for
Maybe
you
two,
guys.
three,
Right,
four.
seriously. I've enjoyed this so much. But before we go, Amanda, what is next for you? Like
Oh,
where do you see yourself in the next year or so?
oh man. You know, it's so funny you asked me that because I've really been trying to like lean in on visualizing and
Mm.
truly I don't know. I actually had a moment this morning. One of my girlfriends, who also is one of the students at the studio I teach at, she sent me this article, and I told you how like I'm not one of your stronger yogis when it comes to astrology or numerology or kind of like the more spiritual side. I'm still learning. But she sent me this article that was talking about August 8th, so like 8/8, and the
Oh,
significance
the
of it.
Lions portal. Hmm.
Yes, yes. So you know exactly. Okay, yeah. So I guess where it aligns with some like Egyptian pyramid, and especially this year, 2022, which by the way, I've been annoying the shit out of everybody in my life this year, being like, is that just me? Is there something special about this year? Where like if you're willing to see things, you gonna see them.
Yeah.
Like what they are. Like you truly, if you will promise yourself to open your eyes. Like
Hmm.
you're gonna, whether it's scary or not, whether you like the result or not, the truth is gonna come out. So I am leaning into that, and I am um, identifying with that a lot. So even this morning, I was, going through some affirmations. I've started journaling, especially now that my girls have gone back in school. I'm carving that time out again to read in the morning, to journal in the morning, and just be very mindful. Um, and so I think my plan in the next year is to obviously like flesh out the programs I've started. So I started two different kids yoga programs, and they're both growing. So like the biggest issue I'm having right now is we gotta hire more people, because
Wow.
which is a great
That's a good
problem to
thing.
have. It is
Yeah.
a great problem to have.
Hmm.
And so I'm battling with my control issues of like, are they gonna love the kids like I love it? You know what I'm saying? I'm like, are they gonna do it the way I would?
Hmm.
And I'm trying to put that to the side because that's just narcissistic as fuck. But anyways, I'm working. Anyways, so I want to continue growing those programs, but I am also hoping to write my own children's training, like yoga teacher training program.
Oh, wow.
And then my husband is actually super into fly fishing, which I know sounds like totally random, but when he talks about fly fishing, it's very spiritual. It's very,
Mm.
and I guess this is for yoga conversation part two, but like it fills that internal, like deeper side for him, like yoga does for me, maybe
Yes.
like me. And so we have talked a lot about possibly buying a place up in the mountains to host like retreats and things like that.
Oh,
But
that's amazing.
yeah, so I don't really have any particular expectations for myself other than, my hope every day is just that I keep stepping in the right direction and I don't get sidetracked by either insecurity
Hmm.
or shiny things. Like I really want to stay focused, and I want to. My goal in a year from now is to be on the path I'm supposed to be on, and I don't know what that is.
Hmm.
I've got a few ideas, and I hope whatever is guiding me continues to do so. Um, so I can just help the most people possible. Uh, but yeah, I'm loving it so far, man. This is awesome. So
Continue to be in the flow.
I'm flowing, girl. I
Yeah,
am
you
flowing.
are. I love
I
it.
love what you're doing. I could never be a podcaster, so praise to you, madam.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. It's scary it's kind of scary, especially with, and I know Mimi knows this, putting yourself out there,
Mhm.
like in front of the world, and it's scary. So definitely say that again.
It's so vulnerable. Wait, what made you decide to do this?
Um, so for the past year,
Mhm.
I've always listened to podcasts for years now, but for the past year, I've been really kind of thinking like, okay, people have a lot to say, and people have a lot of they have a story to tell. And I just love to listen, especially being, doing what I do.
Mhm.
And that's all we do is listen.
Mhm.
And just learning about people's lives and their journey in this world. I'm so
Mhm.
interested in just sharing with other people.
Well, and obviously, nobody starts doing what you do without their own story. So it's that connection. I think that's beautiful, but it is what you do is very vulnerable. And I mean, putting yourself out there, your words, your face, your thoughts, like, especially in a day and age where there are a lot of people who are in pain and want to just rip others apart because they think it makes them feel better. So I commend you for not being put down by that, just
Thank you.
do what
I
you do.
Thank you. I appreciate that so much. Have anything to say?
I love it because I feel like I've shed some friends this past year, and
Mhm.
people have been shedding off. It's kind of naturally happens.
Mhm.
Um, so I find myself hanging out with some pretty cool peeps like you guys. So
Mhm.
um,
Like-minded people though, right?
yeah,
Like it's all about being in the flow.
hmm
Yeah.
The
and
universe just brings it in.
it's a lot of moms that are in a totally different phase of life. I try to surround myself with people that like I vibe with
Mhm.
because I feel like I do have a little bit. I don't know. I have a hard time. I connect to people who are older,
Mhm.
more than not. Uh, but also like I'm trying to surround myself with people that I feel like I'm like, oh, this is something I admire in them. The
Mhm.
whole like the divine in me sees the divine in you.
Mhm.
Um, so
Namaste, baby.
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
So like yeah, I feel like I just see things in you guys and other women or men in my life, and I'm like, yes, I'm gonna keep you close because I see something that I'm like, yes, I like that. Versus just hanging on to stuff that I feel like people are dragging me down or
Mhm.
whatever. I'm like, ugh, get
Mhm.
it off.
Yeah. And
Cleansing
that
mirror.
happens. Oh, go ahead, Amanda.
Oh no, I was saying I love that. And I
Yeah.
think I'm adding to what you were about to say. It happens later in life typically. And Mimi, I think you and I were actually talking about this a few weeks ago, but that age old, you are who you hang out with and you spend time with.
Mhm.
I feel like as you go through life and go through experiences, the translation of that changes into a deeper level and deeper level and deeper level for you to where, again, when you see that saying for what it really means, it's so true. Like the energy you surround yourself with is what you become and it's what you exude. It is the frequency that you travel on.
Mhm.
And I know he can be very controversial, but one person that I love to listen to is Tony Robbins. And he was, yeah, I've had a lot of people, especially in the yoga world, who find him very abrasive, which he can be, but I like direct, and that's always worked well for me. But he was even saying, and I think it was a podcast, it was like an interview or something recently, but he was like, either choose to be with people who are on your level or above you. Don't
Mhm.
ever be with somebody who compromises who you are or allows you to be lazy in your convictions because you're just going to drop. And it's so true.
Right.
And so, Mimi, like you were saying, and Robin, I'm sure you've gone through this too, like as we get older in life, you go through phases, and I think when I was in my 20s, and me, I feel like you're so far ahead than I was when I was your age, but like I felt like the more people I had that I was making happy in my life and that loved me and considered me a friend, the more value I held. Um, but it's not true. It's a facade. And I think, one thing that again, my therapist, I feel like this podcast or any podcast I do should probably be my therapist says. But like my therapist was saying, as you get older, if your group isn't getting smaller, you're doing something wrong. And I totally agree. I mean, if you're, and that's again going back to like that, it doesn't make you a bitch
Mm-hmm.
conversation we were having. By choosing to walk away from people in your life, it doesn't mean you're wishing them ill or you're saying, I don't like you or whatever. It just means you're not meant to walk together.
That's
And that's
right.
okay. And
Right.
that's a good thing for you and for them. Don't wait until way later when something blows up. Like if you feel it now, walk away. Do both of you like a solid. Tip your hat and be like,
Right. Yep.
I wish you well. Keep going. And that's where it's at, because then that's when you get deeper relationships and yeah. So
I
props
loved it.
to Tony.
Yes.
Tony. I wish I'd known that back when I was your age 10 years ago.
Well, thank you, ladies, for coming on today. I've enjoyed this conversation.
I know this was fun. Thank you so much.
So
Let's
seriously,
follow that chair.
till next time. Till
Till
next
next
time.
time, friends.